Welcome to another edition of Partners in Conversation. Today we have with us Sam Love, who is the editor of a recently published Gary Anthology of Writers from here in Gary. And it's published by Belt Publishing, was published in the past year, in 2020. And so we're going to join him in conversation. Our conversation today is sponsored by the IUN Northwest Center for Urban and Regional Excellence here in Gary. And so we're going to discuss this with Sam, who is a local journalist, writer, artist, and community organizer. And so we're going to discuss his part as editor of the anthology. I just want to read a quick passage from his introduction, which I think is really a fascinating kind of introduction to the project itself. Sam writes about Gary: "We are continuously fringed, at times as the dirty industrial southeastern fringe of the Chicago metropolitan area, a place through which to move people and goods as quickly as possible, fit only as a location for dumps, depots, and deportation flights. Or flipping the coin as the dirty industrial northwestern fringe of rural-dominated red state Indiana, black and scary, not really Hoosier or truly heartland, a place to avoid despite the shared geography. In this peripherized place, our stories are rarely centered." And so kind of working from that reflection, we're going to think a little bit about how does one tell the Gary story today. And so I kind of wanted to get Sam to share some of his thoughts about how this story, how this collection was gathered. It has a wide range of voices in it, and a wide range of kind of histories, memoir. There's poetry and photographs. We'll look at some of the photographs later on. The opening piece is by Dina Holland Neal and is about the early days of Richard Hatcher's campaign for mayor, and follows it all the way to the dedication of his statue in downtown Gary. There's a really nice piece of memoir by John L. Harris on growing up at North 42nd in Pennsylvania. It's beautiful. Michael McCauley does a walk through Gary to Miller Beach, and there's a really sobering piece by Joseph Pete about Jonathan Aronzola's death at the Gary Works in 2016. So there's a wide range of journalism and memoir, history, and the sharing of kind of experiences of Gary. And so you want to say a little bit about the collection, Sam, and how it came together in your mind, as well as your connections with the writers?
Yeah, sure. I discovered Belt Publishing through their online magazine probably about 5 or 6 years ago. They had an article about a Gary soul singer from the 70s, Winston Crump. And it was just such a well done piece, not only just about the singer, but about the city as well. I thought it was quite fair. And it was one of the first articles about Gary that I had read by an outsider that didn't make me cringe in any way. So I thought, I liked that. And then I looked into Belt, and they had this city anthology book series where they focus on, the literature of the Rust Belt cities. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be nice if Gary had one day? Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I think Gary will have one day, and perhaps I will be the editor of that, and just sort of mulled over in my mind what that might look like over a couple of years. And then lo and behold, one day a friend connected me on Twitter to the senior editor, Martha Bain, who had put out into the world that she really wanted there to be a Gary anthology. And then I think within 24 hours, she had a book proposal for me. I had never written a book proposal before. I really had no idea what went into a book proposal. Thankfully, I taught for many years, so I knew how to do syllabi and lists and things like that, and just pulled it off. And I'm happy to say, I look back at that proposal recently, and I think about 2/3 of what I had envisioned actually ended up in the final manuscript and the final book. So a lot of it's, from my relationships here as a community organizer. I was involved with a group called the Central District Organizing Project over a decade ago. Was involved in the fights to prevent the for-profit prisons a few years ago. And just, my own personal history. My connection to IUN, I'm a 1999 graduate of the history department. So Jim Lane and Ron Cohen, professors and friends of mine who exerted a huge influence on my educational and my creative practice. So all of that, it all came together. I think it the anthology captures a moment, I feel, a pre-COVID moment, certainly, but one where people have maybe a different vision of shaping a future here. So
Mhm. It's one of the interesting things. You talk about their influence, like, and there's a sense in this of the oral histories that are underneath underneath the writing as well, right? That the stories that people have to tell seem so critical, right? To get those voices out there. And the collection of voices here is really wondrous, you know. As editor, did you grasp any kind of central line of Gary's history that kind of organized the anthology for you, or did you find a central narrative or mapping that emerged as you built the anthology?
yeah, it did. And that's a product of the writers, because all I asked was that they write about a place in Gary that had meaning to them. And what I eventually received had a common thread through it, which was self-determination. And oftentimes the consequences of exercising one's self-determination, which is, of course, a major theme in Black American history. So that fit in there. And I think Gary's role in national and larger history fits that as well. I think love of place was the other thing that comes through. It can be a critical love, it could be an unabashed love, but I think that comes through every piece in there. And again, I don't feel that was so much intentional. I didn't tell them to write that way. I just said write about a moment or a time or a place that has meaning. And they did the rest. They know there's so many good writers here that so many stories to get out. So it was a very pleasant process to pull it all together. Very much enjoyed doing that work.
The impulse of memory is really like central there. It feels like, you know, and one of the things that happens with me in terms of of reading it was that it's funny how a map develops imaginatively if you read the book, right? That
Yeah.
whether you're familiar with Gary's geography and the way the city's laid out or not, a map kind of develops from the pieces themselves as you kind of put the thing together as it goes. When you think about the map that's produced in the book, were there any perspectives or histories or parts of the geography that you feel were not represented as much that you wish you had been able to bring into the book more?
Yes, because I initially bragged to the publisher I could do 5 of these, and I would still love to, because there are that many stories out there. But yeah, I mean, inevitably it's impossible to say it's even a basic representation, because one of my points in the book was it's complicated. This is a complex city that we continually reduce into the most simple stereotypes. So to get the diversity of voices is so critical. I think for me, the major one that stands out, I think the book skews a bit towards middle age and senior citizens,
Mhm.
and not so much with youth. As far as the writing goes, we have poetry, we have Raymar's photographs of youth, so there is some representation, but a lot of the writers were older. They're gay and lesbian writers, but we didn't have anyone focus on that identity in particular. It was all heavily based on the city. Certain neighborhoods, a friend of mine's writing an article right now about the micro neighborhoods of Gary, bottom side, color doors, places like that, 4-H. And I would have loved to have just had more of that. I made a map when I was putting it together because I wanted to make sure that there was at least geographical equity, that we weren't having large swaths of the city forgotten about. I think typically the west side of Gary gets left out of a lot of the story. So I wanted to make sure that if we plotted out where the stories occurred, there wouldn't be huge gaps. And it's fairly well filled out. It's not just a bunch of downtown and Miller stories. It's Glen Park, Tolliston, different west side neighborhoods, east side, places like that. So that was the number one thing. The other lesson of the anthology is there are still many stories to tell, and let's keep telling those stories by all means.
Yeah, one of those pieces that kind of does that is Kay Westhue's piece on the spring at small farms. That
Yeah.
when I read that, that just kind of filled in, you know, that like sense of memory in that piece filled in so much history and memory for me, and so much of the map around Gary that it was stunning, really. One of the things that's true, you
Yeah.
mentioned Raymar Brunson's work there, is the focus on physical stuff in the book. There's a lot of like really great, like detailed descriptions of things. And part of that seems to come out to me too in his photography that appears within the book. Whereas he says in his introduction to the photographs, right, that the beauty is in the everyday as he you know chronicles the city through these photos. How did you think about Brunson's photography as a part of the anthology itself?
It's telling a story visually, and it's telling a very expansive story when you see all the photographs. And even if folks don't have the book, they can go to Belt Magazine and it's online. That was one of the pieces I really wanted to make sure got a wide circulation, and it was released in late summer last year when all the uprisings and riots were going on across the country, and we thought it was very important to get Raymar's images of young black people, not all young black people, but mostly young black people in Gary, and just in these candid positions and just sort of living their everyday life. And yeah, Raymar is a exceptionally talented and hardworking photographer. I'm working with him right now on a project sponsored by the Indiana Humanities Council called Calumet, the Region's River. We're putting a small short documentary together. So I've got to see him in action many times over the past few years. And yeah, really, really just calm and mature, stunning work. It's a good contrast because it's a text heavy book. A lot of the anthologies do include photographs, and I had a concern, was it going to reproduce well on paper, and I'm very happy to say it did.
Mhm.
I think that's a really great kind of centerfold contribution to the anthology. And as I had mentioned before, with the book kind of leaning more towards middle age and older, it's probably one of the strongest representations of youth
Mhm.
uh, in the book, right up there with the poetry.
Mhm. Absolutely. So kind of work towards a conclusion. I wanted to read another passage from the introduction that you wrote. At the conclusion of that, you write, "This is a Gary-centered book, as Gary-centric as I could hope to produce, but one composed and compiled with the consideration of sharing our story with our fellow readers and writers across the Rust Belt Midwest, Appalachia, and beyond." It's really interesting in this book how migration is a central kind of narrative that runs through the piece, right? People coming from other places, from Chicago, from Indiana, from the American South, from other places throughout the world. How has editing this collection impacted your sense of Gary's geographies here? When you think about the idea of Gary as a city on the periphery, as we noted earlier, right? Do you see Gary differently now? Yeah, do you see it differently as a terminus of migration or immigration through your work as an editor?
Yeah, that's another common theme throughout the whole history, right? Because until 1906, there was no Gary and there weren't very many people. There were a couple of scattered villages. And then all of a sudden, boom, all these people, they came from somewhere. And that process is still at work. So one of the things in the book is to combat the notion that Gary's a dead city. Oh, there's nothing here. There's no one here. There's 75,000 people approximately here. And people are still moving in and through. I meet new people all the time still, although COVID has really made that difficult,
Mhm.
as it's also made properly promoting the book and using it to connect in the community difficult. But yeah, the Gary centric thing that makes me smile because that's me being about the most biggest unabashed city booster I could possibly hope to be. Because so much writing about Gary is done from the outside.
Mhm.
And I find that it either overly stresses the negative or it overly stresses the positive detached from the reality. And there's so few balanced stories. So what's the antidote to that? It's, well, get the folks who are here, who are vested here, who have a perspective, have a history here, and put them at center stage. It's amazing how infrequently local people get asked to contribute to stories written by outsiders about Gary. So this was a chance to do that, and in a way that is open to connecting with people across the Midwest and Appalachia, the main readers of Belt. So
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, if the sense of movement to this city is really comes through, and not only in terms of like human movement, also like natural movement too, kind of comes out as well, right? It's like as an ecological space through time. Even that story is kind of represented. I mean, a really remarkable job of editing to be able to bring all that narrative out in the anthology.
yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about in terms of the anthology itself? And did you want to add anything?
Just people can pop over to beltpublishing.com and they can pick it up. They're having a buy one get one free sale right now, and they always have good deals going on. They publish so many other amazing stories that would otherwise be overlooked. And we need to start thinking about our city and our region from a essential to our lives. We don't need to kind of take those outside perspectives and internalize them. As far as the city of Gary goes, I'm just this. I always think about how much this city has given me, how much opportunity I've had uh, being here, and just how many great people. I still say that the most friendly people in the world I've ever met are people from Gary, Indiana, and I've been here quite a while now, and it just keeps getting proven true every day. So we're all going to come through this together, and wow, the city is changing right now. My memory. We spoke of memory. My memories go back to the 80s, even the
Mhm.
early 80s. So like getting the Roy Boy piece in there was really exciting for me because I live not too far from there. And it is just going through another phase as it has so many other times in its history. So let's make history together.
Thank you so much for a great project and a great read. And we look forward to hearing more of the Gary stories, as you go forward as a writer and editor.